you here with us. Welcome, Amoda Maa.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you. Let us begin. Let us begin with a little guided meditation, just being in silence together. Just closing your eyes. And really not trying to meditate, not trying to do anything. Just allowing awareness to be soft and open, very natural, no effort, no focusing on anything, no trying to get anywhere. Just being as you are, however the body is, however the mind is, however the waves of energy. And just allowing awareness to rest with those waves, the waves of thought, the waves of movement, as they rise and fall. And perhaps that movement is very gentle, or perhaps it's very turbulent. It doesn't matter. Just awareness, resting gently with the movement of the waves. Neither grasping nor rejecting. Just being aware of movement on the surface. And then allowing awareness to drop beneath the surface, down. So that awareness rests with the rise and fall, the movement of the breath. Just like the tide beneath the waves, gentle rise and fall. No need to change anything, no need to control anything, just allowing awareness to rest gently, softly with the rise and fall of the breath. And then allowing awareness to drop even deeper, to fall beneath the tide to the depth of the ocean of being. Falling open into the stillness, into the silence. And allowing awareness to rest in this openness, in this quietness, in this stillness. So if you find yourself being pulled back up to the surface, getting caught up in the waves, that's okay, just being aware of that movement. And then allowing yourself to drop down again, to fall into and fall open as the ocean of being. Just this open awareness, not focused on anything. Just relaxed and natural and soft. Okay, so we're taking an in-breath, taking an out-breath, opening your eyes. So when I wrote this book, it was really a collection of dialogues taken from my interactions with participants at events over a period of 3 years or so, with the most common questions that were asked. And what came from that was an essential theme. Whilst what's being pointed to and what's being asked about is the nature of awakening, especially in the midst of the human experience in the modern world. The primary theme seemed to be openness. Openness is the essence of awakening. But whilst awakening has images of a great destination, an arrival point, or something very sudden that happens, and of course it can be sudden, but there's often a waiting for that perfect moment for awakening to happen. And this waiting and this idea of a destination, I found, was a great impediment on the journey of inquiry. So much of that inquiry was to do with unpacking that myth. But when I speak about openness, when I point to openness, it's much more accessible. It's much more direct. It's right here. It's not something you have to progress towards. You don't even have to be a spiritual person, because even that idea is an impediment to the possibility of discovering that which is already awake now. But when I speak about openness, it's right here. Everybody knows or understands or has an inkling of what it is to feel open and to feel closed. And whilst what I'm pointing to hasn't got to do with the surface, the personality self, the personhood that opens when they feel safe, when they feel comfortable, when they feel good feelings, and then closes when they feel threatened or uncomfortable or experiencing a difficult feeling. Whilst that's not really what I'm speaking of, that's the surface. What I'm speaking of is something that is underneath that, closer than that, more intimate than that. And that's the open awareness that is always here. And that's primary. But everybody knows what it is to open and to close on the surface level. So that's an entry point. That's an entry point. Let's go beyond that entry point. The essential open awareness that is always here. That's what I'm pointing to, always, over and over and over again. That which is prior to all experience. That which is prior to our experience being the way we want it to be. And therefore, looking towards that, craving for that, clinging to that, or our experience being something unwelcome, how we don't want it to be, and therefore rejecting it or denying it or trying to transcend it. Yeah, that which we are prior to experience. And that's what is really referred to as the world falling apart. Yeah, this book was written before the current world situation. Yeah, because our world, our inner world, the world that we imagine, the world that we project onto, the world of our likes and dislikes, our rejections and our hopes, yeah, our hopes and our fears. That's really the world that we inhabit. Yeah. The world of our reactivity, yeah? Unconscious, automated reactions to our experience, to our circumstances. It's that world that is invited to fall apart, because awakening cannot reveal itself unless there's an opening in that world, unless there's some part of that world that either comes into question, that's the beginning of inquiry, or some part of that inner world that comes tumbling down because some part of you is ripe for that, or something happens in life that creates that opening, that creates that crack. And it seems as if our world is falling apart. Our inner world of beliefs, our inner world of values, our inner world of certainty. Yeah, certainty about our identity, certainty about how our life is, certainty about how the world is. So this awakening, this realization or recognition of openness as the foundation of who we are, necessitates a falling apart, a demolition of cherished ideas, cherished beliefs, and cherished identities. And then we find ourselves in a world that is intensifying, that is intensifying either our holding on to cherished beliefs, or intensifying the process of that inner world falling apart. So here is an intensification of that awakening process, or certainly the possibility of it. It's a catalyst, because it's when we're faced with either fear or uncertainty, when we're faced with the unknown, that's when fear arises. When we're faced with the unknown, that we are invited to stand at a bifurcation point. It's an inner bifurcation point. That bifurcation point is to move further into fear, to believe that fear, to believe my life is under threat, myself is threatened, and therefore to tighten and close down and to get caught up in the waves of the surface, in the storm on the surface, in the narratives. Yeah, these waves of the mind on the surface are narratives, narratives about what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we don't want, what is good, what is bad. Yeah, it's a divided perception. It's the divided self And in that we get lost. We can call that the ego self, because the ego self lives in division. We can call that the unconscious self, which is the self that is caught in the matrix of narratives, of belief systems. Yeah? That's one way, yeah? That's the bifurcation point. It can go that way. The other way is surrender. The surrender of everything that you know. The surrender of everything that you cling to. That surrender is a death. It's a death of self, a death of ego self. There's no awakening without that. Somebody has asked, can you give some examples of cherished beliefs we need to let go of? There aren't specific beliefs. It's going to be nuanced to you. It's anything that you cling to that brings about a divided state. Yeah. Let's take an example. There can be beliefs about yourself. Yeah, that's what the self is made up of. Beliefs about the self. The belief can be, I'm a lucky person. Good things always happen to me. The belief can be, I'm an unlucky person. Bad things always happen to me. The belief can be one of unworthiness. That's very common. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not loved enough. I'm not lucky enough. I'm not perfect enough. Yeah, these are the unconscious beliefs that create the knot of self, the knot of the personhood, depending on our conditioning, depending on what we've learned, depending on our personality vehicle, depending on the karma that we are born into. So it's going to be nuanced to the individual. When that remains unexamined, that knot of self, there's no freedom in it. Basically, you're a result of cause and effect, of karma. So the beginning of awakening is the beginning of that inner world of self being rocked. We can extend that outwards to the beliefs that we have about other people, to the beliefs that we have about the world, anything that brings about a divided inner state, anything in which you stand in a position of certainty. Yeah? That certainty is a platform for the self to stand on. And if we want truth, if we want freedom, freedom from self, that's what awakening is. Yeah, freedom from the matrix of beliefs, then we are invited to meet life and meet ourselves from the unknown. That doesn't mean you become ignorant or you become stupid or you become lazy. It doesn't mean that you don't have an accurate mind. That doesn't mean that you don't see clearly. In fact, on the contrary, you do see clearly because your vision is not clouded by your unexamined beliefs and this certainty that creates the tight knot of self. To meet life from the unknown is a vast openness. We meet life from beingness and not from personhood. To meet life from beingness brings great depth, it's a surrender of the self that tries to uphold itself, either as good or bad. Yeah? The victim self, the poor me, is just as much a part of the ego self as the one who pumps themselves up with self-esteem and a sense of perfection and a sense of specialness. Both of those, yeah, are part of the the ping pong, the pendulum swing of the divided self. To wake up is to go beyond division. It's the end of inner division. And that requires, this waking up requires a surrender into the unknown. When fear appears as an energy, it's usually the thoughts that wrap themselves around that energy that we get trapped in. That's the unconscious state. That's the sleepwalking state. Yeah, the default state of the human condition. Surrender requires us to meet the energy underneath the narratives, to meet fear as it is. Fear is not a thought. Fear is an energetic, visceral experience. To meet the felt sense. This is a surrender of the ego mind. It's the surrender of the self that wants to stand on certainty. Certainty comes from clinging to a narrative, either on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. They're always opposites. Surrender is vital for true awakening out of the dream of separation, out of the dream of a me in which life is doing something to me, or I'm doing something to life to improve my life, or to get what I want. Yeah, there's always a me that is operating in that. To meet life beyond the me is true freedom. It's the end of the personhood driving life. You are no longer the driver of life. You operate from that which is prior to personhood, prior to experience, and prior to your life, from open awareness. Open awareness is what is always here. It's never been anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't start somewhere. It doesn't end anywhere. It has no boundary. It has no limit. You could also call it presence. You can call open awareness presence. Presence is not a me that's being present or practicing presence. Presence is what is always here, before the me. Before the me appears, presence is always here. It's this that's being pointed to. It's this that's being pointed to. Because from this, as this, which is the foundation of who you are, a foundation that doesn't have anything solid in it. It's the groundless ground of being. But from this, there is nothing to fear. Because this presence, this openness, yeah, presence and openness are like two sides of the same coin. In full presence, there's openness. In full openness, there's presence. Yeah? From here, there is nothing to fear, because presence and openness hold it all. Since there's no boundary, it's like the sky. The sky holds it all. The whole of existence, the whole of experience, everything, life itself hangs in the sky. Everything appears and disappears in that sky. But that sky has no ground. It has no beginning or ending. This we can know. This we can recognize. It's not a knowing from the mind. It's not a accumulation of knowledge. That's why I say it's beyond being spiritual. Although if we define being spiritual as the willingness to go on the inner journey, on the journey of inquiry, then it is about being spiritual. But it's not about a spiritual identity. It's not about spiritual practices. It's not about what you do or what you believe or the amount of spiritual knowledge you have. It's beyond that. It's here. The most uneducated person, the most simple person can know this. It's a very innocent, naked state of being. It seems complicated to the mind that is full of narratives, the mind that is constantly seeking to get somewhere. It either seeks to get somewhere in the world of form, in other words, to accumulate more knowledge or more wealth or more self-worth or more status or more love. Or it seeks to get somewhere in the inner dimension through spiritual practice, a spiritual destination, the idea of awakening or enlightenment as something very special, something always up ahead, when I'm good enough, when I'm perfect enough, when I'm spiritual enough, and so on and so on. But this true awakening is the end of the seeking mechanism. It's the falling into and falling open as both the emptiness and the fullness of this moment. It's empty because the groundless ground of being, open awareness itself, is empty. It's not defined by the content of your experience. It's not conditional on the circumstances of your life. It's not even conditional on how you feel. It's not about feeling good or bad. It's beyond feeling. It's before feeling. So falling open as this emptiness is the recognition of that which is prior to all experience. Awareness is aware of awareness itself. That's coming home. There is deep rest and peace and freedom in this. And then that falling open as emptiness or into emptiness, as open awareness, is also full. It's full of life itself. It doesn't deny anything. It doesn't reject anything. The whole of the human experience is allowed, is accepted, is embraced. To fully recognize this is freedom. It's freedom from division. It's freedom from duality. Yeah, that's what is meant by non-dual awakening or non-dual awareness. Very often that gets confused, with bypassing, avoiding the human experience. This idea that now that I have recognized this, my life will be perfect. I'll never have another horrible human feeling again. This is not true. It just means you feel everything, the exquisite agony and the exquisite beauty of life itself, the human experience. But you are not identified by that. Yeah? Mostly in the unconscious state, the self identifies itself, yeah, from its experience. Yeah? Whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, comfortable thing, an uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. So the self identifies itself by that. And that's what creates this me self. Awakening is the end of that. You stop being identified by your experience, by what you feel, by what is felt, by what is here. It's just here. Yeah, and because it's just here and you are not identified by it, it means that it moves quickly. It's as if it moves through the sky. It doesn't stick to you. It doesn't stick to you. The stickiness comes, yeah, when we're identifying ourselves from our experience. Yeah, I'm good because good things happen to me. I'm bad because bad things happen to me. I'm perfect because my life is going perfectly according to my wishes and my plans. Or I'm imperfect because it seems to be going wrong and I don't get what I want and I'm unloved and so on. Yeah, this creates that knot of self. And that's when energies, feelings, emotions stick to you. They stop sticking to you when you stop being identified by anything that happens. Because who you are is that which is prior to any happening. This is freedom. This is peace. Now, you can't just understand that, yeah, but you can recognize it over and over again in every aspect of your life. Until perhaps one day it goes all the way and cuts the root of identity, cuts the root of seeking. And then you are free. But I say again, that freedom doesn't look the way that we imagine it to look. Life still goes on. The human experience still goes on. But there is a very different quality. You are not limited by birth or death. You are not limited by what happens or what doesn't happen. Thank you. Thank you, Banyen, for hosting this. And thank you to everyone for being here.